afternoon. Welcome, welcome. I can see you guys filtering in. We're so excited. We're just going to give people a couple of minutes to join. So bear with us while Seth attempts to play some pump-up music.
Oh, you want pump-up? I was
Still
just gonna
happening.
play some instrumental. Instrumentals I thought would work. Huh?
Yeah, and I can actually hear it. I don't know if other people can. This is way less awkward.
I mean, I'm trying to keep it appropriate, but I'm like, I'm also a young adult.
Definitely.
But this is appropriate, unless I want to do like a little T-Swift.
What is this? Was it like a, wait, what was that last one?
Vintage tea, brand new phone.
T-Swift, big fan, not gonna lie.
Big fan of folklore.
We've already got people chatting in.
We need to prepare you for this.
Sequin smile, black lipstick, sensual politics. When you are young,
Anna's our biggest fan, and we love you for it.
Ethan.
Thanks, Anna. Hey, Ethan.
We're just giving people a minute or two more to join, but thanks for being here, everyone.
Feel free to say hello in the chat. We love to see who we're talking to.
I'm kind of done with the music now. I get like.
Yeah, you got shy.
What?
You got shy.
Oh no, I like just conversation, and I like that people are saying hello and popping in, and I'm waiting.
Heaven forbid we do that with music.
Yeah, because I can't hear. I can't like when I put my volume down for the music, it puts the volume down for everything else.
Oh.
Unless I put the volume down on specifically on my Spotify, which
You're feeling FOMO.
Yeah, I was missing out. You know, Anna knows how much FOMO I have. I'm surprised she hasn't brought it up in the chat yet. So,
wait, can people hear us? Or
yes, Ben, we are live.
Can people talk to us or no?
No, they can't in the chat.
But they can see us.
That's cool that they can hear us.
Yes.
Yeah, Ben.
And see us.
And see us.
And see
us.
Ben, you ready to rock?
Yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll. How about you?
You're getting called out in the chat, Seth.
Oh, I know. My
no time to defend yourself.
I mean, it's fine. I'm not shy, and I do have major FOMO, so both are valid points.
Not shy. Okay, why don't we get started? Because we've actually got a packed agenda today, and I think some more people will trickle in. But for those of you who are here on time, let's get this rolling. Yay! Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. I'm so excited. We have not done a webinar like this yet. This one is so important. We've got a great topic today. Why your vote matters as a young adult. This webinar is brought to you by members of the YARR community, Young Adult Representatives of RDLA, and in partnership with our friends over at our Odyssey. Say hi, Seth.
What up?
Real quick shout out to our wonderful sponsors, which of course, webinars like this would not be able to take place without their support. So thank you, sponsors. And on today's agenda, my name is Lindsay Cundiff. I help out with the program of YARR. So I'll be providing just a couple of quick updates about the group as well as some housekeeping items. And then we've got Seth Rotberg from our Odyssey, of course, to give a couple of his own updates for their group. And then we will slide right into the main reason everyone is here, which is, of course, preparing for this upcoming election, right? We've got big stuff on the horizon. So fortunate that we've got Shira Strongen joining us. She's going to run you through basic stuff, how to prepare, how to register, whether it be by mail or drop off or going into the polls in person that day. And also how to prepare yourself with learning about the candidates and everything else you need to know to feel prepared, especially if this is the very first time you've ever voted. Then we will hear from my colleague Swapna. Say hi, Swapna, yay. She is representing RDLA, so she's gonna help run us through rare disease legislation on the federal and state level, anything coming up on the horizon that you need to know about that. And then we're going to toss it on over to Ben Raskin-Gross. Say hi, Ben.
Hey, gang.
Hey. And he's going to share with us how to promote voting and helping people getting registered on social media, encouraging your friends. It's a big theme. This election is it's not just about getting yourself to vote, it's also about getting everyone you know to vote. So Ben's going to give us some tips on that. And then we're hoping to have a couple of minutes for Q&A because I'm sure people have some questions, so we will get to those. Before we start, also some best practices. So everyone knows this webinar is really intended for the young adult community in rare disease. So if you have found yourself here at this webinar and you do not identify between that age demographic, that's okay, but please be respectful for the space when it comes specifically in time for the Q&A. Also, if you have questions, of course, we encourage all the questions. You do not have to wait until the end. If you just scroll down to the bottom of your screen, or sometimes icons are at the top of Zoom, click on the Q&A icon and just go ahead and type your questions. Seth will be at the other end helping out with those as the webinar continues. We also have the chat function, which is your space for y'all. If you want to say hi, if you want to provide a link, anything else that you feel like we haven't covered in this webinar around voting, great. That is your space, go for it. Also, this webinar is closed caption. There are some instructions that you'll need to follow. I'm going to see if my colleague Alyssa is available to pop in.
Yes, hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So unfortunately, as our luck would have it, we had some issues with Zoom and their coding. They just recently changed some things. So our closed captioning today won't be able to be viewed in the Zoom platform itself. However, we are still able to show some captions. It's very easy in the chat box. I just placed a link. If you click that link, a web browser will open. All you have to do is enter your name and then click the button join, and you will automatically be able to see all the closed captioning and everything we're saying here today. If you have any issues with that, just feel free to type in the chat function and I'll help you out as I can.
Thank you, Alyssa. So glad you're here. Yes, please, if you're having issues activating that service, just type Alyssa help and she'll come running. Also, just some quick notes about troubleshooting in general. These are the days of technology. It's so great that we're here, but here we are. If you are having some issues with Zoom, like things are chugging along or iPods like that all of a sudden, and you're not trying to fix it, there's just some quick tips here. Close out, in fact, right now, close out any other streaming sites that you might have going on in your browser. Go ahead and do that right now. That's your Spotify, your Hulu, your Netflix. Close them out, please. If you continue to still have some issues, you could try connecting right into your device, directly into your internet source or your Ethernet cord. I myself do not know where those things are, but you all are probably more savvy than I am. You could also try leaving the meeting and coming back. Sometimes that works, or fiddling with some of the viewpoints, like exiting full screen or changing your view. from gallery to speakers. Sometimes that helps. So hopefully there won't be any troubleshooting, but if there is, there's some tips for you. Just some quick YARR updates I want to run y'all through. We are in the middle of kind of strategizing about how best to serve this group for 2021. If you have some ideas about YARR and the program itself, things that work, things that don't work for you, please email me. I'm all ears. It's lcundiff@everylifefoundation.org. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're kind of having side conversations with people here and there, but if you have not reached out to me yet, I'd love to hear them. Also, if you are a YARR member and you have not submitted your profile yet on our map feature on the website, please send me your headshots, your bio, any links you want in there. This is just an effort of helping you build your professional online status. And a heads up, we are trying to also schedule, I know some people don't have professional headshots, so we are trying to schedule that. So be on the lookout for an event in the near future. We're trying to, actually she might be on today, we're trying to hire a YARR photographer. Also, if you missed any of the summer series recordings, not to worry, we have recorded them. We have some wonderful YARR speakers this summer. Go ahead and find those on everylifefoundation.org/young-adult-representatives/events, or just email me. Seth, updates about our Odyssey.
Awesome, and thanks, Lindsay. Excited to be here. And for those that don't know me and aren't giving me too much of a hard time via the chat, my name is Seth. I am the co-founder and board president of our Odyssey, a nonprofit that provides year-round social emotional support to young adults impacted by a rare chronic condition. So we do enjoy working closely with YARR, especially with their members who are looking for not just the advocacy and policy aspect, but also being able to have a chance to connect and network with one another. So thanks again, Lindsay, for including us in this opportunity. So real quick, I'll kind of go through kind of our two main areas as of I guess today. One is our kind of topic specific meetups that we are hosting once a month around different topics that discuss unmet needs of young adults. Our next one is actually coming up in a few weeks on October 15th. It's how to kind of live positively as a young adult impacted by a rare chronic condition. Our lovely speaker, Lexi Pappas, lives with a rare condition known as FSHD. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but it's a form of muscular dystrophy. And, we're always looking for more people who might be interested in kind of sharing about a different topic that young adults can relate to. And then we have our ongoing virtual meetups, which are very informal. It's just an opportunity to connect, learn, and network with one another and simply connect with those who get what you're going through. So for more information, you can just go to ourodyssey.org/virtual-meetups, or just go to our website and you'll be able to find that, or just email us at info@ourodyssey.org to learn more. And this is the fun part where I get to talk about this fun disclaimer. So this is just very important, and just being mindful, just understanding what this webinar is, first knowing that it's non-partisan. In other words, we're not here to influence you in any way about who to vote for and whatnot. It's more just an opportunity to understand the ins and outs of voting, understanding what it means to vote as a young adult in the upcoming election, and then also understanding ways to support rare disease legislation, not just nationally, but you look at it from the local level too. And so we wanted just to be mindful of that this is not a place to persuade you to say, hey, vote for a specific political party or endorse a political candidate or piece of legislation, or even just an opportunity to debate political candidates, because we're just here to help. We're not here to provide that specific type of information. So just keep that in mind, that this is a way just to inform you about the ins and outs of voting. And with that being said, I am going to turn it on over to my good friend and colleague, Shira Strongen.
Hi, thank you so much, Seth. So I want to kick this off with a little bit of a question. So if Lindsay, you want to go to the next slide. How many Americans voted in the 2016 election? And you can go ahead and put your guess in the chat. And thank you, Anna. But no pressure to be right or anything, just put a guess. Not enough. Yes, Liz, Kennerly, I'll give you that. Okay, 40 million from Ethan. Let's see if we can get one more guess in. Anybody else? 20 million? Okay, so want to take us to the next slide, Lindsay? So actually a lot higher than y'all guessed. It was approximately 138 million Americans voted, which is exciting, right? That sounds like a really big number, especially when we're guessing here 20 million, 40 million people. And to be clear, this is for the presidential elections. So this is open to all Americans, not just at a state level. So that sounds exciting, right? Well, what percentage, next slide, please. What percentage of eligible Americans voted in the 2016 presidential election? Eligible meaning above the age of 18 and not having committed a federal crime. So what percentage do you think that is? Not enough, Liz. 58% from Seth, 55% from Ethan.
Oh, we can put stuff in. Cool.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's see what it is. Lindsay, 62%. Okay, so it's 58.1%. Seth kind of cheated because he'd seen my slides in advance, but we'll call that what it is. We'll leave it be.
I actually totally forgot, to be perfectly honest, but.
Okay, whatever. I'm gonna let that go. So 58.1%, which again, that's over half, which is cool, but that's still not nearly enough. How can we be a representative democracy, which is what our country is supposed to be, if we're not representing everybody, if everybody who's able to vote isn't voting, right? Also, by the way, I put my statistics and where I got them from. So they're from the United States Elections Project, and it was really important to me that we picked bipartisan and, well, frankly, nonpartisan statistics to make sure that everything we're getting to you is accurate information, not swayed by personal beliefs. So we want to go to the next slide. So this is the potential voter representation distribution. Among eligible voters, so the ages between 18 to 35, we make up 31% of the voters. So I'm 21, I'm part of that age range. And if you're here, you're a young adult, right? So you should also be part of that age range. So we make up 31% of voting demographics. 36 to 51-year-olds make up 25%. 71 plus year olds make up 12%, yet they're the ones who are most represented because they're the ones that vote the most frequently and are also the most informed voters. I kind of have my bias of why I think this is. I think that by that age, you've realized how important voting is. And when you're young, you still don't really know if you can make a difference. You don't get the point of it. It doesn't seem to matter as much. A lot of policies don't necessarily impact you directly, but they do impact our future, right? And that's something that we're all responsible for. So I want to propose that we get more organized and well-informed and make sure that our votes are represented instead of just the senior population. Next slide, please. Thank you. So where to get some reliable nonpartisan election information so that you can be a well-informed voter, because just voting doesn't do anything. Just listening to your parents and saying, I'm going with X candidate because that's who my parents are going with, doesn't really do anything. If you have the right and responsibility to vote, you should take advantage of it. So I really recommend Ballotpedia. I think they're an amazing resource. It's essentially what it sounds like, right? It's a Wikipedia, but of the ballots. They have that federal levels and state levels, so you can look up elections that are in your hometown. They even have like city council stuff on there as well, so not just big national coverage elections. And they have scorecards essentially of where people are voting in different arenas. They don't rank them, so it's not like, oh, this person gets an A in climate change, but a C in healthcare or something like that. It's not that at all. They just kind of tell you, oh, this is this person's specific interest and this is how they voted in the past on these kinds of bills. So I really like that one. I would recommend it more for people who are a little bit more experienced in policy because it is a bit policy heavy. If you're not as experienced, I would really recommend checking out the Campus Election Engagement Project, which is part of Campus Select. It's really geared towards college students and first-time voters, which actually this is my first time voting in a presidential election. I was too young in 2016, so my first time really voting was in 2018 midterms, and I'm really, really excited to be able to use my vote this year. But not everybody is as familiar with policy as me. The first time I went to the Hill was when I was 13 years old and kind of haven't looked back since. So this is a really, really wonderful website to look at how you can get involved, look at different scorecards again, look at different legislation that is specifically impacting college students. Because again, I think one of the big issues for us in not voting in this age demographic is we don't see how tangible everything is to us. We don't see how it can impact us because it feels so far in the future, right? So I really like this resource, and I saw that Liz added congress.gov too, which for sure is great. Again, nonpartisan, it's a government-based organization. Similarly to Ballotpedia though, it can be a little bit policy heavy. So if that's not something you're as comfortable with, I would definitely recommend Campus Election Engagement Project. It's a little bit more fun. Next slide. Where to register to vote. So this is a big, big thing. So many people don't know how to register to vote, and especially it's chaotic right now in the middle of a pandemic and everything is a mess. So check out Rock the Vote and Every Vote Counts. Both are like very targeted towards young adults and also nonpartisan organizations that are just about getting the vote out. Another really cool thing is that you can check your voter registration here. So for National Voting Day, which was I think last week, I swear I engaged in it. Days are blurring together in the middle of a pandemic. I went to Rock the Vote and I checked to make sure that I was registered to vote, to make sure that everything was in order, that everything was set for me to get my mail-in ballot, everything was good. So they're really awesome about that. And they also, both orgs have opportunities for you to get involved. So if you are healthy enough to be a poll volunteer worker, amazing. You can do that to help ensure that we are able to get all of the votes and every vote counts. Yes, thank you, Anna. So I would definitely check out these two resources, and they will also direct you to your state's website. So every state, and we'll get into this in a second, has different requirements as far as voting. They have different dates and deadlines. Some states, I'm from California, I currently live in DC, but in California, they're automatically sending everyone mail-in ballots. However, because I'm in DC, I have to request an absentee ballot to be sent here. So that's a whole other separate process. But Rock the Vote and Every Vote Counts will direct you to your state so that you will know, do I need to request a mail-in ballot even if I'm in state? Am I okay to just let everything be, say I'm registered and it'll show up? You know, those are really, really great tools. So you want to go to the next slide? And thank you, Anna, for linking them. Really appreciate it. So really important, voter registration deadlines. The first one on this list is October 4th, which we're already almost in October. We're in October in 2 days. It's wild. So be on top of it. If you see that your state is on here, be on top of it. This was updated as of the 10th of June, but all the information should still be the same. Some states have allowed same-day voter registration. They've expanded that because of the pandemic, and they know that people are a little bit chaotic. So there might be a couple of updates on which states are okay with same-day voter registration. However, either way, if you're doing same-day voter registration, it would have to be in person because they wouldn't have time to give you a mail-in ballot for a same-day voter registration. So just keep that in mind if that's something that you're wanting to do. Mail-in ballot. So this is really important. Most of us are going to be voting via mail-in ballot this year because of the pandemic. I don't know about y'all. I am personally immune compromised, so I can't go and do anything right now because of own safety. So I have no choice. But if you are able to go vote in person, super cool, do that. However, just know this is an option and know how to make sure it counts. So number one, be sure to fill out your ballot on a dry, clear surface. It will not be accepted with any wet marks, coffee stains, etc. So make sure that ballot is clean and returned in the same exact form that it was sent. Ballots are like high school Scantron tests. We've all taken some of those. We all remember those fill in the bubble days, SAT, ACT, disgusting. I say that like I've taken it. I didn't even take the SAT or ACT. I only did test optional. But anyway, you need to be as neat as possible so that they're not discounted. So when you fill in the bubble, it needs to be in the bubble, no like big scribbly lines all over the place. It needs to be able to read evenly. Do not forget to sign your envelope and try to have the signature match the signature your state has on file. So check out your driver's license or your state ID and make sure that those signatures are the same, because if they do not match, they will try and claim voter fraud, which you do not want to happen. Be sure to read your state's requirements thoroughly and instructions that come with the ballot so you don't forget anything. 13 states require all or some voters to submit a copy of their photo ID. So you want to make sure that when you're sending in your ballot, you have everything in there that needs to be in there. Do not send your ballot in too late or without a postmark. The postmark will say what date it was sent in on. So for example, if you send it in on the day after the election and they see that it's postmarked that way, your vote doesn't count. If you send it in 5 days before the election, but it didn't have a postmark, they have no way to prove that, it won't be counted. So make sure that you have a postmark for your vote to be counted. And if at all possible, drop your mail-in or absentee ballot off at the actual poll center physically to avoid any potential complications. USPS right now is on overload, right? Everybody is at home. We're all ordering things online. And if you're like me, you've been doing a little bit too much online shopping, but that's a separate issue. So we want to make sure that all votes are counted, and the best way to do that is by getting it delivered to the polls. If you yourself can't go to the polls because you're immune compromised, like I mentioned, I can't, you can have a parent, friend, family member go and drop your ballot off with theirs. Everything is sealed, so there's no tampering or anything that can happen, but it's just a way to guarantee that you are counted. Next slide. So this is an example for accessibility in slides. Some states have an option to say that you want voting materials in an accessible format. For example, I think this is California's ballot that we took a picture of. New Jersey, I know, has a accommodation where you can have somebody fill out your ballot for you if you don't have fine motor skills to do it yourself. There just has to be like some kind of double signature on there to make sure that everything is copacetic. But you can request accessible formatting. So that could be in Braille, that could be having larger font, etc. Just this varies state by state, but these are your options. And then here's another picture that says, I want to get my mail before each election, so that you can make sure to have mail-in voting for every election moving forward. It's a really great option. Just know your rights as a disabled student or disabled young adult, I should say.
Shira, I'm popping in here. Don't kill me. I forgot to edit the next slide. So if you could please just talk about how to mark the implications of which party you mark.
Absolutely. So one of the really important things that I think a lot of people don't know about, I actually didn't even know about this until my first time voting in 2018 in the midterms, is that you have to be very careful when you mark your party. If you mark not sure, you can't necessarily vote in primaries. So you have to be able to mark. You can vote. So let's say I switch your ideologies 10 years later, you can always change your party, but at least you can vote in the primary still, and you can vote in the election in both. However, if you mark not sure, you're not guaranteed to be able to vote. And it's really important that you're able to vote. Because again, most of us young adults, we're figuring out our ideologies. We don't know where we stand on the spectrum or anything like that. And so it makes sense that we might want to put not sure until we figure things out. And while it's always editable, that does mean that you can't vote and it has future consequences. So pick a party for registration and know that you can always change depending on life, places, and lessons learned.
Let me unmute myself. Thank you, Shira, for the introduction. I am the RDLA State Advocacy Fellow at Every Life. And before I came to Every Life, I was actually a YARR member. And I guess by age, I'm still currently a proud YARR member. So thank you for having me. I haven't completely aged out. Sorry. Okay. So now that Shira has, thank you. Now that Shira has talked about how you can register to vote and how the different ways you can put in your ballot given the circumstances we are in today, what's next? And what's next is making sure you're an informed voter and know what is on your ballot. So it's step 2 next. On this great graphic from Rock the Vote, as Shira has spoken about Rock the Vote, on let's research what will be on your ballot. So how can we do that? Next slide. Well, conveniently, RDLA can keep you informed on key policy issues. So for those who don't know what RDLA is, it is the Rare Disease Legislative Advocates under the Every Life Foundation. It is a program and platform under Every Life. It is a legislative hub for legislative advocacy, resources, tools for patient advocates and anyone affected by rare disease, as well as patient organizations. It's a pillar of our organization that all events and resources are free and will always be free to the rare disease community. Ways you can be informed on key policy issues is through our monthly webinars and monthly newsletters, and both are full of up-to-date, great information. Other ways are through our website, where we have advocacy resources, tip sheets, which I will go through one of them just dedicated to the election. Please do follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletters so you know when these events are happening, and I'll give you all that information at the end. Next slide, please. So not only are we voting for the president and vice president come November, we're also voting for the senators, 35 senators, every member of the House of Representatives, which is all 435, either we're re-electing them or electing new ones, 11 governors, 10 attorney generals, 7 secretary of state seats, 280 state supreme and appellate court seats, and then a little over 5,000 state legislators, which I'll go over that as well. So I Am Voter is a great resource, and when we all vote, they're both nonpartisan and have great graphics and social media platforms. So I liked how this one said every election does matter, from the local, even mayor is on some ballots. So from the local level all the way to the federal level, make sure your voice is heard, and one strong way to do that is to vote. Next slide, please. So one of the reasons why your vote is important, other than making your voice heard, there's an extension of why your vote is important, and that is balance of power or political control at the federal level. And it's both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. On this slide, we'll talk about the House of Representatives. So we have 435 House of Representatives. The number of House of Representatives in each state is based on population. So in Alabama, we have 7. In California, I know it's a lot more. So by law, though, there can be no more than 435. House of Representative members are elected every 2 years, so both in the midterm as well as what we call presidential elections, like what November 2020 is. By math, 218 seats are needed for a majority, and currently in this Congress, Democrats have the majority with 232 seats, as you'll see in the graphic. And Nancy Pelosi, as a Democrat House member, is highest ranking member on the House side, is called the Speaker of the House. So for Republicans to get the majority in the new after November, the party must pick up a net gain. And when I say a net gain of 20 seats, that means they could lose some seats and they can gain some seats. So it has to be a net gain of 20 seats. So what does majority mean? Why is that important? And how does your vote affect that? Well, depending on who has the majority in the House and in the Senate, can affect if bills are proposed, how, when, and if bills are passed, including bills that affect the rare disease community. So a reminder that the president can propose, argue, fight for or against legislation, but Congress does ultimately pass legislation, and the legislation process, if you remember the School of Rock song, does start in Congress. Next slide, please. So on the Senate side, it's similar process, but the number of voting senators in the Senate is fixed by law at 100. We have 2 senators per state. We have 50 states, and senators are elected to 6-year terms instead of 2-year terms. And senators are, every 2 years, only 1/3 of the senators are up for election. So again, by math, 51 seats are needed for a majority. And currently, Republicans have the majority with 53 seats, as the graphic does show. And for Democrats to have a majority, the party must pick up a net gain of at least 3 seats at minimum, and the president and vice president. And I say that because 3 seats, if you look at the numbers, would get you to 50, which is not majority. In the US, the vice president can break ties on the Senate and vote on the Senate side. So that's why it says 3 seats plus the president and vice president, or 4 Senate seats. So there's 35 Senate seats that are up for election. And again, both in the Senate as in the House, majority can indicate and affect how, when, and if bills will be passed. Next slide. So as I said, RDLA has a web page all about how to stay informed for the 2020 election. For the purpose of this webinar, I'm going to go over actually 4 of these: the RDLA Congressional Scorecards, the Congressional Caucus, USA.gov, and ballot initiatives. Next slide. Oh, there we go. Next. So the first one, RDLA Congressional Scorecard. When you click on that link, it'll take you to this page, and you can search for your legislator by zip code, or you may know their name and you can put their name in. Or you can just do a full search and click Senate, which will give you all the senators in our current Congress, and or you could click House, which I've done here for this image, and it'll give you all the House members. And I chose House because all 435 are up for election. And it will share with you, based on specific rare disease catered policy, how the member, if the member voted for or voted against. So for is a check mark and against is an X. These can also include, so many of these bills, such as medical nutrition, this stands for medical nutrition. You can hover over the name and it'll tell you the full name. Many of these bills, such as medical nutrition, have not come to the floor, and there's not a floor vote, and that you may know that term or image from C-SPAN, where all the members are voting and saying their vote. But instead, they're up for co-sponsorship, so showing their early support. And so that's what these X's or check marks mean. Next slide. The next one is Congressional Caucus. So RDLA, one of the programs is the Congressional Caucus. The Congressional Caucus is a group of Congress members, both on the House and Senate side, and both Republican and Democrat. So we call it a bipartisan, bicameral. And not every single congressional member is on the caucus. That's actually a part of advocacy with RDLA, is that we ask you to encourage your members of Congress to join the caucus. If they're a member of the caucus, they have the opportunity to learn about key rare disease issues that affect the rare disease community through caucus briefings that we hold every few months. We just did one on newborn screening, and we did one on COVID-19 earlier in the summer. But you can click on each of these, House or Senate, to see which House members or which Senate members, and if they are your senators or House members, are on the caucus. And you can even take action and to send a message to your member to join the caucus. Next slide. Okay, so just like at the federal level, at the state level, there's also this balance of power or political control. And again, it means who has the majority in the Senate chamber or the House chamber. Sometimes it's called the Assembly. It's labeled something different at the state level. And this is a quick map of the legislative control. So who in either for the legislature, who has the majority. So as I said, there at the beginning, there are about 5,000. There are about 5,876 state legislative races on the ballot in 44 states. So why are state legislative races important? Why is it important to even research our state legislators, what they care about? Why engage with them? Well, let me tell you that the policies passed or failed at the state level affect your life day in and day out, both at the federal level as well. But a lot of what concerns us day in and day out sometimes can be addressed at the state level much quicker than at the federal level. And it's very important to engage with our state legislators as much as we engage with our federal legislators. And some of the policies have jurisdiction at the state level, such as newborn screening, which has jurisdiction at the federal level as well as at the state level. So state races determine who represents you locally, and they also determine if Democrats or Republicans have control of the Senate or the House. And what's unique for this election, one more reason why this election is important and why your vote is important is that in the new year, in 2021, we will start redistricting, which is redrawing the district lines of who represents you and and that is based on 2020 census data, if you took the 2020 census. So in most states, the legislature oversees this process, and then in also most states, the party with the majority controls the process. So I highly encourage you to use the following resources that I'm going to go over to research your state-based candidates as well, to be informed when you get your ballot. Oh, next slide, please. So one of the ways to look at your state candidates is USA.gov, which is also a link on our RDLA 2020 election page. And if you click on this first one, next slide, please, that I've highlighted, it'll go to this map. And each of the colored states are the states that have governor races. As I said, 11 states have governor races. And then if you scroll down, it will cover it'll list each of the candidates running for the governor in each of these states. You can click on the name and it'll go straight to that candidate's page to learn more about them. It's a great resource. Next slide. If you go back to the link and click on the second one, which is the mayor elections, next slide. It will take you to this page where you can see all the mayor elections in the country. So I'm going to make this interactive. Go ahead in the chat and put where you're from in the country. You don't have to necessarily put your city if you don't want to, but let us know which state are you representing or that you live in. And so with this page, it will tell you if there's a runoff and when is the runoff election, which 11/3 is our November 2020 election day, or it will tell you if the election has already happened and who the winner was. Okay, I'm gonna look at the chat really quick. Okay, we have people from everywhere. I'm doing this presentation from Alabama, so welcome my neighbors in Mississippi. Okay, next slide. Okay, and the last link on the RDLA page is ballot measures. So ballot measures is proposed legislation at the state level, but instead of the legislature having the final vote, you as a voter have the final vote. And so this is huge. You get to vote on legislation. So the way to check on which ballot measures are on your state ballot, go to the link, scroll down, and you'll see this search function. Click your state, click all states. Make sure you click all topics, but if you want to go really detailed, click whatever you'd like. But make sure you do all under measure type general election, which means the November 2020 election, and click this year. Next slide. And this is some of what you'll get. So I clicked all the states, and this is some of the ballot measures in the November election. I'm not going to go through each state in detail, but I wanted to show you a diverse number of ballot measures to show you the diversity of topics and the importance of the topics based on your preferences. So in Arkansas, they're voting on term limits for state legislators. In California, they're voting on funding for stem cell research and voting age. In Florida, they're voting on the minimum wage. Nevada is voting on the recognition of marriage regardless of gender. Utah is voting on support for children and individuals with disabilities. And Washington is voting on amending the Constitution to give more money for family and medical leave insurance. Next slide. So I really encourage you to stay informed with the links that we've given you, but also to sign up for our newsletter, our monthly, so that you get to know when our more monthly newsletters are going out, monthly webinars. And this is a a perfect way to get started to have a louder voice in legislative advocacy, both locally as well as federally. Next slide, I will share how you can reach us. So this is how you can keep in touch. Please sign up for our newsletter at our website. Our RDLA website is rareadvocates.org. That's easy. And you can stay informed for the 2020 election at that link, rareadvocates.org/election-news-2020. And this is our social media handles. If you have any questions, this is my email. I'll be happy to discuss anything in more detail offline or in the question and answer period. Thank you, and it's my honor to introduce the next speaker, Ben, who will introduce himself. He's a new YARR member and new speaker, and we're excited to have him share the topic of sharing all this great information.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Can you guys see me? I feel like doing this standing up today. It's cooler.
Go for it, Ben.
We can see you
Cool.
great.
You can see me, right?
Yes.
And hear me?
Correct.
Cool. So, since I've never presented with you guys before, I think it'll be cool to just share a little bit about myself. So, I'm Ben Raskin Gross, and I live in Glen Ridge, New Jersey, and I recently graduated from Landmark College last year in May 2019 with a bachelor's in liberal studies and a minor in education. And right now I'm planning the next stage of my life, and I have a lot of gratitude. And I was born with a condition called congenital hyperinsulinism, CHI for short, and it's a condition of the pancreas, which, and the condition is when the pancreas produces too much insulin and your blood sugar goes low, and because of the low blood sugar, you have brain changes as a result, and mine are that I have two types of visual impairments, nystagmus and strabismus. I've also got motor coordination issues. I've also got other learning disabilities, and I've also got epilepsy. And I had my pancreas out when I was young, and I've got diabetes as a result. And let's do the next slide. So my presentation is going to be about social media and engaging people in voting. And when you make a post about voting and social media, it's important to be mindful of what you say, because information's got to be true. And there's a cool mnemonic to think about when you do that. In addition to the information having to be true, it's got to be helpful, it's got to be interesting, it's got to be necessary, and it's got to be kind. And to get your message across to people, it helps to have hashtags, it helps to have really cool images, and also, because it's political information, it helps if the information is non-partisan, and that it's relatable. And I'm ready for the next slide. So these are ways you can put in your information to help people understand it better. The first way is using stats, and stats are great for if you're trying to talk about a capacity or a probability of something. But my view is, since I'm not really a mathy person, unless you don't have qualitative information in addition, so information that's not in the form of numbers, it's kind of hard to understand stats. So that's actually gonna bring me to my it's important to have a little bit of stats, but probably not overkill. So that's actually gonna and actually, could you actually hit backspace for, so an example of a stat you could use that's related to voting, if it had to do with your post, is 35 million Americans with disabilities are eligible to vote in the election in the US. And I think I'm ready to move on to the next slide. Thumbs up, double thumbs up. So that means that the information should be kept simple. You know what they say when you've probably had to do a writing assignment or another kind of project, less is more. So the less information you have that's substantive, the better. More people are easier to understand it, and it takes less of your attention to process it. So with this, it says vote now. It's very direct and clear. So I think we can move on, and now we're about to talk about ways to make information spreading more simply. So the first way you can do that is using celebrities and people you know to incorporate in your post. When people see others they either recognize or know, even on a personal level, and they see them doing something good, they'll be motivated to do that thing. So if you see someone in a picture voting or doing something political, that will encourage you to do that same thing, and you'll make a difference in your life and others' lives. And that's called modeling. I'm ready for the next slide. And you may have noticed that the people in the pictures had smiles on their faces, and it may have made you guys happy. And when you post about something, whether it's related to voting or not, it helps to have emotional content, because emotional content can help with helping people remember it better after they read or look at something or watch something or listen to something. And emotional content will help people stay engaged. And that actually brings me to my next slide. Humor. It's an emotional response. triggered by something that was funny. And the post that you write about something related to voting, it has to be funny, not just to you, but to the others who are reading it. And if it's not funny to at least some people who are reading it, then the message wasn't received the way it was sent. And sometimes people won't think of it as humorous. But if someone or a group of people think of it as humorous, then they'll go telling their friends and saying how funny it was. And then they'll get more views, and so and more people will be informed about the information you posted. So I'm going to move on to my next slide. And the last method, but not least, is something called an action item. And these are when it's a post that's encouraging someone to do a specific thing. And for a few examples for these are go to specific polling places and research your ballot information. And even though all of these things are thought of as separate items, you don't have to just use them separately. You can combine them. That's actually more effective. And that's my last slide.
Ben, you got one more.
Oh yeah, I've got one more. Using hashtags is really crucial too, because you can use ones that are very common and others will be able to find them. And the more people who see your posts, the more people will be informed about what you're trying to teach people about. And it's great for more people to be informed about your cause or what you're trying to get at than fewer people. And just like we said in the beginning, it helps if you're trying to target a multitude of people for hashtags to be nonpartisan. And if you can also link the different types of posts with the hashtags, that's also very effective. And yeah, thank you for listening to my presentation.
Thanks,
That's
Ben.
awesome, Ben. Thank you.
Uh,
I think we've got a couple minutes for questions.
yeah, no, I think we do, and thanks to our lovely panelists for taking the time to share a little bit about voting. I definitely learned a lot. I'm already following I Am a Voter now on Instagram because didn't know about them. So thank you, everyone. Few questions. So I'll try to go like in just different orders, but Swapna, the scorecard, what's considered for the scorecard for RDLA, the congressional scorecard, what's considered like a good score on that? Like, is there a certain percentage point, like 30%, 40%, 50? I mean, I would assume 100%, but I don't know if
Yeah.
they're
I think we can assume 100% if every member was part of the rare disease caucus and then every member voted. So the legislation we have put forward on the scorecard currently, we're all hoping for the legislation, so voting for the legislation or co-sponsoring it before it gets to the point of voting on the floor would be the ideal. So I encourage every person to look up their own representatives and see if they have co-sponsored the legislation or if it has already been to the floor, voted on it, and then contact them. You can do that also through our website and ask questions. I think the best way to educate ourselves is to not be afraid to ask questions. There's no dumb question, I promise. The best thing we can do is ask. And that's kind of how this webinar came about, is that we kept on asking ourselves as advocates as well as an organization. And so then that's how we came together to put this out there. So I can meet one-on-one or email one-on-one to like discuss the meat of policy.
Another question, and I don't know, I guess this might be more general, but like someone asked just how to plan on addressing, to address an act, I guess, against or for the appointment of Justice Barrett, just because of how they might vote to end the ACA if confirmed. Maybe if any of you want to give kind of general thoughts on maybe the importance of the ACA or however you want to take this.
Okay.
I will say just really quickly, because this is a whole other show, that one of our co-chairs for the policy group, Allison Harity, did a wonderful rundown of the ACA in 2 summer series ago. It is on the YARR website. She is so articulate with explaining the Affordable Care Act and what it means to the rare disease community. I highly recommend checking that out. Just wanted to jump in and say that. I don't know if Swapna has any ideas on the chair seat for the Supreme Court. And yeah, I'm not quite sure what to say about that.
Yeah, that's a full conversation. I think one is informing yourself on the ACA and what has been presented to the Supreme Court in the past. And I'm glad people do know just voting records of Supreme Court justices, proposed or not proposed or on the court. That is good to know. I will say, just as an advocate, as an organization, we are committed to partnering with our policy partners from the local level to the federal level, regardless of who wins whichever election. And I will say we're doing that as an organization. I'm committing to do that as an advocate, and I've done that in the past. And I would say that is a great character as an advocate. That is part of activism, is working with people on both sides of the aisle, whoever they are. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I'll throw in one more, and Shira might have went over this briefly, but maybe just another reminder of the difference between a mail-in and absentee ballot.
Yeah, so An absentee ballot is if you are voting from a place that is not your registered county/district. So I am voting in California, but I am not in California currently. I'm in DC. So I would be getting an absentee ballot. However, let's say I was in California in my district, I would be voting with a mail-in ballot because I'm personally not going to the polls. So even though I'm there, it's just coming directly to my address that I'm registered at, which is my home in California. And either I would mail it back or somebody would go drop it off at the polls for me. So that's the basic difference, is where your current location is. If you are not at the address that matches your voter registration, so even that's another thing. If you've moved recently, even if you're in the same district, you do have to check that and update voter registration, because they need to know where to get your mail-in ballot to. But yeah, the difference is whether you are in district or out of district is when it's different between an absentee and a mail-in.
Awesome. Last kind of question I'll throw in is, Ben, do you have a favorite hashtag that you recommend?
So not particularly, but probably related to voting, probably something like get out the vote or get people involved.
Nice.
Or yeah.
I love it. I love the hashtags on hashtags. I know you had that in there as well. Hashtag.
Yeah. Hashtag on hashtag.
Beth, I do want to say one last thing. There were a lot of additional resources shared in the chat that were great. We can add more to our RDLA webpage. There's more weeks to go until the election, and we applaud everyone's effort to stay engaged and informed. So I've left my email in the chat to please email us any additional links you feel are great, and again, nonpartisan, and we'll check them out and add them as appropriate. I've also saved some of the resources that have been shared. So thank you for everyone for being engaged and sharing.
Thanks for that, Swapna. Ben, I already added something you sent me to the RDLA resource page, so.
Oh, cool. Was it the 35 million people resource?
I think so.
Cool.
Yeah, should be on there.
And another hashtag, get your friends involved.
Yay. Y'all, we are over. Whoopsie. It's such a big topic. It's a very important presidential election year. We want to end on this note. Just a reminder, debates. Hello, there's one tonight. The first presidential debate is tonight. I hope everyone tunes in.
Cool picks.
Say what, Ben?
Cool picks.
Oh. Yes.
That's my favorite cartoon.
This is also a whole other webinar. Yeah, so please tune into the debates. I'm sure they will be interesting. There's 3 for the president and then 1 for vice, I believe so, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Correct.
And thank you again to our Odyssey, Seth, and I know Anna, and you're on here somewhere. I know you've been sending links in the chat. Thank you so much. Like Swapna said, any other questions that come your way, we are your resource. We're here to help. We're not here to tell you how to vote, but we will most certainly be there to help you in assistance if you have just questions or, I don't know, need help with accessibility issues, whatever it is. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Your voice matters. Your voice counts. Your vote counts. Go vote.
Yeah.
Vote. Vote.
Get out the vote.
Get out
Yeah,
the
rock
vote.
vote. I can't believe that site's so relevant. I love it. That ended in the 90s. It's so great. It's still there. All right. Any other ending notes before we sign off? Seth?
I got nothing. So I was just like, this is great. This is great.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, no, I think it's just important just to, as everyone already said, try to get out and vote. Make sure you're registered to vote, and just try to keep people informed. I think my biggest thing that I'm learning is it's, voting is a privilege that a lot of us have and are given, and I think it's important to remind ourselves of that and being able to say, okay, what's not just best for me, but what's best for my family, what's best for maybe my friends as well. And so I just think it's important to also look at it from that angle too, and just know, we're not just voting for the presidency. We're voting for, as Swapna posted in one of those pictures, we're voting for a lot of different potential seats as well. So we got to look at it from that angle too. Go out and vote.
Cool.
Get out the vote.
Perfect.
Great note to end on. All right, y'all. November 3rd. All right. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.